Hi, my name's Cucaburr or John O'Connor, and I'm going to speak to you today about James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, specifically from page 297, line 7 to page 300, line 8. It's the night lessons of Shem, Sean, and Issy. They're in the attic of their father's bar, HCE's bar. He's downstairs entertaining the customers. So we'll start right in. Um, Outer circumstances being eke-willed, we carefully, if she pleads, lift by her seam, hem, and jabot at the spithiest of her trickicant, like thousands done before since Philly's cowperd. O cone, the maid's apron of our ALP, fearfully, till its nether nadir is vortically, where, allow me a right to two cute winkles, its bottom point of, Winkles, its navel's apex will have to be and be. So basically, what we're doing is taking her seam, hem, and jabot at the spitziest, that is the sharpest in Danish, point of the triquecant or triangle, like thousands done before her, since Philly's cowperd. Calp is from the Italian word for trample. Um, a cone. According to Yeats, all physical reality is a double cone. But this is a little different from Yeats. These cones are um, next to each other with a diamond in between, two equilateral triangles on top of each other. So Shem appropriates Yeats' system for his own purposes. So we have O cone. Um, So anyhow, we take this spizziest part and the maid's apron of our ALP, and we lift its nether nadir down here and vertically. Now, allow me a right to two cute winkles is a presage of what will be coming in the text about right triangles. Allow me a right to two cute winkles. That's right angle with two cute angles. And we lift it to the whether the apex, an apex, that could be a reference to the Greek word for grow, which is napos, to the apex where we will have to be and be. So we're bringing it up to pi. So we have the delta here, ALP's delta. So then we have you must approach near mere, for at is dark, lobe. And this is what you'll say, geldi. So mir is Gaelic for finger. So you must use your finger. It is dark. Lobe, use your ear too to hear. Lobe also means praise in German. So perhaps Sean must have acquired a modicum of praise at this point. And at is dark. Geldi is Anglo-Indian for hurry. And then it says, uh, Prometheus of the promise of provision. And and then we have let's see and Prometheus of the promise of provision. Prometheus means forethought. uh, Prometheus brought fire to man, and because of that was tortured. His liver was eaten out by an eagle, I believe. Anyhow, this is forethought for Sean. Seeing this vulva gives him a notion of flesh without word at the end of his journeys. So, anyhow, it continues on. Uh, this is what you'll say. And then we have, let's see now. Oh, uh, let's see. Here more. And light your match. I'm sorry, I forgot that part. And light your match, Geldi. A match pertains to Prometheus, lighting the match, the fire, and all that stuff. Match is also Russian for sword. Uh, which is a phallic symbol with the womb of ALP and everything. So then we have, and this is what you'll say, wa ku, which is Chinese for I go. As Sean is still on his watch. Sean has, I believe, a series of watches in the book, and even though he's on his watch, he has to keep moving. So anyhow, and then it says sluice, which is German for end. It's also slang for cunt. And then we have, it's also a tributary of the Liffey River. And then we have pla, which is ALP, backward, but it's like the sound of a newborn infant might make. And then we have, and there, redneck. Redneck is Roman Catholic. It's also a term for southern south of the United States, sort of a crass person. Also, it's like a newborn with the red neck. So again, the sexual congress leads to a twice-born experience. So then it goes, hadn't we the gay at sea with Pool the Punka's bell? And gay at sea is like the Gaia tree, which is a Hindu formula. It's not necessarily mathematical, but it is more spiritual of a kind, or poetic. And it foresages forebears, or for it points toward the mathematics that are going to be coming up in the text. Pull the Punka's bell. Punka is a large Indian fan, and that's another metaphor for sexual congress. And then we have Mai and Thai, the living spot of dead waters, fastest firm of Hurlbury Fen. And Mai and Thai, living spit of dead waters, that's the dead waters between Shem and Sean, or Sean and Issy. Fastest firm of Hurlbury Fen. Fen is a marshy area. That's like the area in Booterstown of Dublin Bay. And then we have distinct and isoplural in its your sow to the double, 6 Jewish parts. So distinct means ungirt and equilateral in its 6 Jewish. It means sinuous and sexuous at the same time. Your sow to the double. And you know how Shem in the Portrait of the Artist called Ireland the great sow that eats its pharaoh. And sow to the double, that would be the twins. And then 6 Jewish parts, that's sinuous and sexuous parts. But that's a pun on the Trinity, the distinct and equal in all things. So then it continues, flumen, fluvian, fluteus, midden wedge of the streams, your muddy old triagonal delta. So flumen, fluvian, fluteus, those are river references as well as muddy references. And the midden wedge is a term from philosophy and spirituality, the middle way of the stream's muddy old triagonal delta. So yeah, and then it goes on, fiho miho, plain for you, Appia, Lipia, Pluvaville, fiho Provençal. Fio is Provençal for a little young girl. Appia, Lipia, Pluvaville. Appia Lipia means watery eyes, and Pluvaville, also Aqua Appia, is a fountain near the Temple of Venus in Rome, and Pluvia means rainy. So yeah, to proceed, the no niggard spot of her safety valve. First of all, usqualuteral 3 angles. So the no niggard spot of her safety valve. Niggard means stingy. Tight, fisted, sort of her safety valve. So, you know, when things get heated in the conversation or something, you have this safety valve, you know, the vulva, the female pudenda for the generous lover there as sort of a safety valve if things get heated. And and then we have, yes, this safety valve is the first of all usqualiteral 3 angles. And usqua means as far as in Latin, it means water in Gaelic. And luteral comes from the Latin word for muddy in Latin. And then we have, and why wouldn't she sit crest-logged like the lass that lured a tailor? And crestlow is Russian for armchair. It's sort of like this right here is like the bottom of an armchair. The lass that lured a tailor. That's the lass that loved a sailor. Here it might be reporting toward the curse, the tailor and the Norwegian captain. It's another story in Finnegans Wake. So then we have the constant of fluxion. Now that points toward Newton's The Doctrine of Fluxions, which is his word for calculus. Here it's the constant of fluxion, which is a points toward is a gloss on the constant of frictions. So this pertains to ALP, the female archetype in the book. She is basically das ewig weiblich, according to I think it was Goethe that said that. Mahama Wetma, the great sow, again, Stephen Dedalus with the sow of Ireland. As Niobe, is the Niobe of nations, as Oscar Wilde would call Ireland. All suffering, panhysteric, all womb suffering. The personification of Allah. She is the constant of fluxions through time, and where all afflictions endure. She's the pride of the province. And then when that tidal boar rushes up from the Afrantic, Olive Koran's his bet and beer. So Koran is some dialect. I don't quite know which. Koran means cunt. So he rushes up from the Afrantic, and the Koran, they used to do that in Ireland after a battle. They would send women out to calm down the warriors, and Koran is calms Sean down. Olaf Koran's is bet and beer. Bet and beer is what they use in Germany as an advertisement in hotels to advertise bet and beer, bed and beer. Here it's got a more necrologic, for lack of a better word, meaning. Bet is in the alphabet in Greek and Hebrew means bet, a house. Beer means something carrying a coffin. I've looked in Wallace Budge's, I believe that's his name, Wallace Budge. He wrote a dictionary of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs translated into the Roman alphabet. And bet meant something like a veil that you used in covering a mummy or something like that. Shroud of Dendra, it was called. So here we have, so, and then of course, Al-Quran, the book of the Muslims, the Bible of the Muslims, and then finally, Olaf Koran, a Norse king of Dublin. I knew a fellow named Peter Carey. He was an Irishman named after this Koran, Norse king of Dublin. So then we have pa lickum, la lickum. Lickum is an Old English word for live body. Pa is Norse for on, and la is living, I believe. Lay. La is Norse for lay. So on a live body, lay a live body. So again, we're having the sexual Congress infusing there. And then APL, LPL, this it is and her. You see her it, which it whom you see, it is her. So it apparently means sex appeal. It's also another name for the female pudenda. So it says ambiguities in their role in the left-hand margin, and that's ambiguity or circumlocution, and that's because you see the female pudenda in your mind's eye. It's like staring into the sun, and so you use circumlocution to hide that shadow and images. And if you could go an egg better, we'd soon see some Raffin scrumula rifa. So this diagram looks like an egg beater if you look at it. And Raffin scrumula rifa means hook or crook in Italian. So basically, the vision of the lady parts bring on a battle between the twins, and yeah, so and then we have Quick's Heret Fossey ending, which is Quick QED, Qui Erit Faciendum, which was to be done, which is put after uh, elements of Euclid. Fossey is slang for cunt in French. So post that to your pipe and smark it. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. All through we have Pope and market there, religion and commerce. And you can haul up that langual pennant, mate. I'm not quite sure what that means, that langual pennant, languid flag that just lufts in the wind, like maybe it's phallic or something. I've read your tongue's dismissage, demissage. And that's has two references in the gospel. One from Luke, where Simeon says "Nunc dimittis," which means you may release your servant because I've seen your salvation into the world. Regarding to Yeshua, when Yeshua was born and brought to the temple by his parents, Simeon says "Nunc dimittis." Now you may release me, Yahweh, because I have brought your seen your salvation into the world. But it's also a reference to Tunc crucifixerent, cum eo duas latrones. Then were crucified with him two thieves. So Shem combines these two phrases, or columbines these two phrases into Tunc demissage, then was released, or something like that. So I guess according to Augustine, only one thief was quote unquote released. He uses as an example between the two sins against hope. One was do not presume, one thief was damned, do not despair, one thief was saved. So I guess one thief was released or saved. So one Tunc demissage, then was released one thief, perhaps. But that's really just grasping at straws. So anyhow, but this somehow qualifies us for the gloss on numbers that Shem follows with. All I can think of is how Shem says Joshuan judges had given us numbers and Helviticus committed Deuteronomy. So somehow Joshuan judges, Joshua is another name for Yeshua, which is the Hebrew name for Jesus. Joshua judges giving us numbers. So here we have Joshuan judges giving us numbers here. So we have, for let it be taken that her littleness is of no magnitude. Or again, let it be granted that Dol the laziest can be dissimulant with all respects from Dol the fiercest. So nist, little nist is Armenian for sitting posture. So here it's a reference to Euclid's definition of a point, that which has no magnitude. So let it be taken that her littleness is of no magnitude. So she is the quintessential woman. She's self-effacing and quaint as she sits there with her sitting posture having no magnitude. She's the quintessential woman. And then let it be taken that Dol the laziest can be dissimulant from Dol the fiercest. So Dol the laziest, or Delta last, may dissemble from her previous fierce self as Dol the first, or Dol the fiercest. So that speaks for itself. Then we continue. Thence must any what you like in the power of Emtud be either greater than or less than the unitate we have in one, or hence shall the victorious ready eyes of ever two circumflixer and circulars never film in the ellipsities of their gyrabouts those figures which are eternally reproductive of themselves. Wow, that's a mouthful. So we have any what you like, and any what you like is Shem's term for a couple. I guess he just doesn't deign to say the word couple. So in the power of entut, empt means discharge. So in this case, it's discharge of semen. So any couple with a discharge in the power of discharge of semen between themselves is either greater than or less than the unitate. Unitate means any number divided by a digit. So I think he's making things a little more complicated than he needs to here. So any number divided by a digit, I guess, would be any number would be a couple divided by their children. So you have 2 divided by 4, that would be 1/2 would be the unitate. But here, let's make things simple and just call it the union. So anyhow, any so this a couple is greater than or less than the union they have in their child. I think that's very interesting. I mean, it's a, as Augustine would say, it's a mystery to be considered. That a couple is greater than or less than the union they have in their child. It's never equal to the union they have in their child. The couple, it's only greater than or less than the union they have in their child, or the unitate they have in their child. In this case, 1/2 if you have 4 children. It's very strange, but 2 and 4 is 1/2. So, but anyhow, yeah, that's that. So then we continue with or hence shall the victorious ready eyes of ever two circumflixer and circlers never film in the ellipsities of their gyrabouts those figures which are eternally reproductive of themselves. So the victorious ready eyes of ever two circumflixer and circlers, those are basically 2 parents. The victorious ready, they're victorious in their love, and of ever two circumflixer and circlers, they're always circling around themselves and searching in their lives for a better life for their children and for themselves. Never film in the ellipsities of their gyrabouts. Now, the gyrabouts posits the notion of Descartes that the universe is made up of vortices, and in this case, it's positing that each person is such a one, such a vortice or gyre, as well, according to Yeats, it's more like each person is a double gyre. But so basically, it's saying that never let a couple in love that produces issue, children, fill in the spaces, the voids in their relationship with those figures, ficken is German for fuck, or figures, which are eternally reproductive. That's a pun on eternally reproductive of themselves. Now, eternally reproductive means eternally speaking of themselves. So never let a couple in love fill in the voids of their relationship with their children. Is basically what he's saying. So yeah, Shem. There's a phrase in the Wake. It describes one of the brothers as simplicator arduus. I probably said that again earlier in this video, but anyhow, it's very apt. Simplicator arduus, simply arduous. Now in the left-hand margin, it states ecclesiastical and celestial hierarchies, the ascending and the descending. So I think when a couple is making love, they're descending, whereas their issue is ascending. And so, yeah. both celestially and ecclesiastically. Now we have corollary, uh, the logos of someone or some womb or some woman, to that base anything, when most characteristically mentissa minus, comes to nullum in the nth. Now, what I gather from this is that the words, that is the logos of a woman in a council, when characteristically a prophet, or a little less than, come to nothing in the end. Now, that's really a strong statement, saying the words of a woman in a council come to nothing concerning profundity in the end. I mean, that's very misogynistic. Um, so, I mean, I just say that because later in the book he talks about things from anything, but he does call it a corollary, as if inciting a quarrel. Because if you told this to someone like Kamala Harris or Margaret Thatcher or Queen Elizabeth, they'd be Rusha Marada mad. Or any of my female friends, they would be very angry as well. Or so here's no what better than the sin of Aha with his cousin Lil, verse ways, uncovers wise, and all that's consequence and contingencies, till purport stops repipping him, since the rectangles are all obsession for limiting this tendency of our frivolity sexuagessima to expense herself as sphere as possible, paradismic perimeter in all directions on the bend of the unbridled, the infinitesimals of her facets becoming manier and manier as the caliculum of her undescribables, one has thoughts of eternal Rome, shrinks from shirtiness to shirts. So this passage, which begins with the right angles and subsequently right triangles, starts with the sin of Aha, or Adam, with his cousin Lilith from the Bible. So I could go and explain to you what exactly a sine is and a cosine, all that stuff, and be exhaustive in the mathematics, just to show you my propers, or my my bona fides when it comes to my mathematical knowledge. But I won't. I'm just going to go right to the end and just say that basically we have the sin of Aha with his cousin Lil, swayed by verses, together with wise verses and all that's consequences and contingencies, until the perpetrator through which Sean's sin stops annoying him. That's basically what it is. And in the process, you have sine, cosine, let's see, you have 1 minus sine, verse sine, 1 minus cosine, verse sine, 1 minus sine, cover sine. Then you have cosecants and cotangents, and a whole slew of things from trigonometry. And that's what it's talking about, is the destiny of Sean, basically, about reading verses and wise verses and a sin and all this stuff. So now we pass on to Frivoltini Sexuagessima. So Frivoltini Sexuagessima, expensing herself as sphere as possible, is the foregoing passage on trigonometry. So, but the rectangles are abscissant or cut off, so the tendency is limited. This tendency to expense herself as sphere as possible is limited. There are no right angles on the diagram, if you notice. There are no right angles. So, but to continue with this expensing, as if the rectangles have not been cut off, she embellishes with her paradismic perimetal in all directions on the bend of the unbridled, the infinitesimals of her facets becoming manier and manier, as a caliculum of her undescribables, one has thoughts of internal Rome. So I'm repeating myself here, shrinks from shirtiness to shirts. So Frivoltini sexuagesima refers to sexuagesimal arithmetic based on the number 60. Also, sexuagesima is the second Sunday after Lent. Here, sexuagesima is the feminine somewhat, as Berkeley would say. Perhaps her expensing herself, other than expanding herself and spending money as fair as possible, is her urging her vanities. So her perimeter or paradismic perimeter represents bliss or paradise. Shem is here referring to Moore's Paradise and the Peri. The Peri is a creature from Persian mythology, one who dwells in heaven. She, Frivoltini sexuagesima, continues to expand, spend money in all directions on the bend of the unbridled, that is, unwed, undisciplined, the infinitesimals of her facets, that is, the infinitesimals, which is a term from calculus, infinitesimal calculus. It pertains to a number infinitely small yet not zero. But in this case, it is infinitesimals, a term that could almost be taken at face value. Her minute feminine facets, which could be read as wiles, and these become manier and manier, which means to handle in French, or to manage, as a caliculum, which is the accusative of calculus, meaning calculation. So, to sum it up, to the Greeks, triangles were used to find the area of circles. In this instance, right triangles are used to expense Frivoltini sexuagesima's perimeter into a sphere. This is because of her red tangles, or right angles, and because right triangles are the ideal triangle for the sine function. But since her red tangles have been cut off or abscission, her minute feminine wiles have become more and more manageable. It is a calculation of her undescribables, that is, her underwear, which describes the area around her bra and panties. Her undescribables shrink from shirtiness, boring annoyance, to shirts, amusement. Here we're dealing with the heavenliness of her undescribables, what I just described, yet with humor instead of sophomorishness. There is a modesty, perhaps, even a discipline that obtains when her right angles are abscissed or cut off. Instead of a woman being shirty or a man being annoying and gauche and concentrating on a woman's bosom, her shirt, he makes shirts, jokes. So through discipline and humor, we achieve freedom. Yes, so anyhow, so the section on right triangles pertains to Sean's destiny. The section on equilateral triangles, which is in a previous lecture, pertain to types of ejaculation. So Shem and Sean really go down and dirty when it comes to the Hashmagandhi. And then when it comes to circle geometry, well, not letting Frivoltini sexuagesima expense herself as fair as possible, with the absence of red tangles, makes her discipline herself, not spend money as much, and take carnality with a sense of humor, I guess. Now, in the left-hand margin, it says the peripatetic periphery. It's allothesis. Now, what I got from this, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm thinking that perhaps the Aristotelian school is like a peripatetic periphery circumscribing other kinds of knowledge, as if it were the peripatetic school, that is, a Frivoltini sexuagesima. And its antithesis, or allothesis, is when the red tangles or right angles are all abscissed or cut off, representing a limiting tendency, which is Finnegans Wake. The allothesis, the worship of strange gods. So it's not a it's not an epistemological or knowledgeable limiting or limiting, but a moral limiting. So anyhow, scholium. There are tris sides to any everything, but ix on the freed brings ukes to the feared. So there are three or sad sides to every song, but I happy makes you sad. That's from the German. Ix on the freed. Freed means happy. And ukes to the feared. Feared means frightened, basically in English. Uke means you in German. So, I mean, in a World War II perspective, with the Germans riding their high horse for Hengist, you can see, with their strength through joy. That was the motto of them, the Nazis, anyway. It's frightening. Their happiness made the rest of Europe frightened. But yeah, so, and then we have QED again, which was to be demonstrated. So we're back to mother of us all. The delta is the mother of us all. Oh dear me, look at that now. I don't know if your spectre or my omination, but I'm glad you dimensioned it. And those are two phrases or names from Blake's mythology or his cosmology, the spectre and the spectre and the emanation. The spectre, as Shem would call it, is the man's fear, and the omination, as he calls it, is his love. And so we have that in the ix on the freed, ukes to the fear. We have fear and happiness. So then we have my Lord, my Lord. If that ain't just the beatenest lay I ever see. And Lourdes, I believe, is a religious site, a shrine. I believe it's in Italy, although I'm not quite sure. Apparently to lay with, yeah. So, and then a superposition. Superposition. Shem really likes to dab in or dip in quantum physics. And here, this is a term from quantum physics. When the particle is in its wave form, and it's sort of like a coin being tossed up in the air, and it's not neither heads or tails. It's neither and both at the same time. And that's superposition, when a particle is neither 0 nor 1, and it hasn't been measured yet. That's superposition. And so he's saying, what a superb position or superposition. And then coin to coincidence. So quince is like it's like the scrotum of a man, sort of. It's like a quince. Point to coincidence. And then omnius calidimus. So it's like lovemaking is like a chance or something. It's like random. I don't know about that, but omnius calidimus means everything collides. But when measuring in quantum physics, everything collapses. It doesn't collide, so to speak. It does collapse, though. The particles, that is. So I don't really understand the connection, as it were. But yeah, omnius calidimus means okay. Omnius calidimus. Okay comes from the term all correct. It also is from Martin Van Buren's running for president in the 1800s. It stood for, I forget what it stood for, but he used the term okay. And so anyhow, we have. So yeah, we collide. Everything collides geometrically, personally, emotionally, and historically. And then it says, as all over Cromwell said when he slept over his grandmother, kangaroo's feathers. So Crum was actually a Khan of Bulgaria, which is like sort of like a king. And Bulgaria was noted for its buggery. And it's the closest to the east-west line or wall. But then what needs some explanation is the left-hand margin. Canine Venus sublimated to Aulitic Aphrodite. So Venus, Finn McCool, and Hannibal are all sort of lumped together here. And Canine Venus refers to the Battle of Cannae, which was fought in 216 BC when Hannibal and the Phoenicians met the Roman legions at Cannae in Italy and routed the legions. After the battle, the Phoenicians collected rings off the fingers of the Roman legions and collected them in baskets. It was pretty much gruesome undergang, cruel perdition. So anyhow, Canine Venus represents a prodigious fornication, but nevertheless a rite of passage one must go through on the way to courtly or Aulitic Aphrodite. That's what Aulitic means, courtly. So, and such like manners. So Oliver Cromwell sleps, that is, drags his grandmother, that is, Grania, from Finn, who represents Venus, over the wall to Aulitic Diarmuid. Diarmuid means no envy. So Diarmuid is in the Finn cycle. Grania flees the pursuing Finn to be with her true love, Diarmuid, which actually means no envy. So, I mean, that's something that happens through carnal understanding, is you lose your sense of envy. You're not envious of people all the time. So Grania from Finn, yes, so Cromwell drags his grandmother, that is Grania, from Finn, Venus, over the wall to Aulitic Diarmuid, which means no envy. Cromwell and Aulus represent loss of innocence. Now, the plundering of Ireland, that's the loss of innocence on the people of Ireland with the coming of Cromwell, with the one, and the sacrifice of Iphigenia on the other. Now, Iphigenia was the daughter of Agamemnon, and on the way to Troy, Agamemnon sacrificed Iphigenia to the goddess Artemis for good winds on their sailing to Troy. So, so both is like a forfeiture of virginity in a way. So anyhow, that's basically what it's saying, is like ungainly lovemaking leads to courtly manners, like courtly Aphrodite is what it's saying. And kangaroo's feathers is just an expression of exasperation for the complicated way of using abstract history to explain what I just said. So, and perhaps Cromwell might stand in for the act of sublimation. Anyhow, who in the name of thunder would ever believe in you or that bold? In this case, as bold as Cromwell or Agamemnon. But your holy mooks or holy mixed and gaping up the wrong pulse, as if you was seeing the geist that stays forenenst, you blessed simple top dom fool. Now, geist that stays forenight, fair night, is a spirit that ever denies. That's from Goethe's Faust, which he calls Mephistopheles, which is sort of a devilish character. But here, Sean sees Issy, ALP, as the geist that stays fair night. I mean, that's how besotted he is by her. He sees her as this light, and she's a Dulcinea. Excuse me. So he sees her as this Dulcinea, and it says, "Where is your blessed loitering lieutenant's lamp? You must lap wander it." Wander it means horizontally, down the bluishing reflection below. So Sean's lamp could be the salvation boat. I suppose Shem is enjoining Sean to look down on Issy's lap, her blushing face. Now, Her trunk is not her brain box. Sean here looks too much at woman's flesh instead of appreciating their intellectual qualities. Here, where the bulgy lines, wave line, is seen here the puncture. Her puncture could be her vulva. So he done it. Look, see her good. Well, 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 well. O D, that's very lovely. So D is a mathematician and a magician. And then it goes, we like simper speech Hamiltons to fellow silver tones O'Haggins. So William Gerard single speech Hamilton made a brilliant maiden speech and never spoke again. And so that would be a Sean character. And then we have Silver Tongue O'Haggins, who was a Lord Chancellor of Ireland, and that's a Shem character. So basically, as far as the D is concerned, though, her D could be her like her mouth or her delta, which makes Sean speak in a way. So anyhow, and also somewhere in there, Sean might have done the Hushmagandhi, might have had sexual congress, as well as seeing her delta. So either way, he starts over, and so he has this exclusivism, the practice of being within oneself, and so we have in the margin ors, sores, and fours. Orsa is Latin for beginnings, sores is Latin for fate, and fours is Latin for chance. So, yeah. And then when he rolls over his R's and shows the highs of his heels, it says L for R. Very lovely and tightly, like a yang sheep slang with its sing fang say. And so the yang is the positive masculine active principle in nature. And sheep, and then slang, snake, which is a Shem character. However, the sing fang say means son of the wind word, which is a Sean character. And then it proceeds, so analytical, plausible. Analysis means loosening throughout. So that's the analysis of Finnegans Wake is the loosening of the Shem and Sean character. And then it proceeds, and be the powers of Moll Kelly, neighbor top Sawyer, it will be a lozenge to me all my loft. Lozenge means flattery, and loft means to run. So Cuchulainn swears by the solemn contents of Moll Kelly's primer. Cuchulainn was an ancient Irish hero. He was somewhere I've read that he was the nephew of Cucaburr, but I'm not quite sure. And also in the House by the Churchyard prologue, it states, "Oh, be the powers of Moll Kelly." So, yeah, so that's the he and the she of it right there. Yeah. More better too, feller, we being speak copper-ads. That means it is better if we had spoken about money. I guess, I guess the relationship between Shem and Sean would be good if they spoke about money. I don't know. Ever thought about Guinnesses? So this is the ongoing relationship between Shem and Sean, and with ALP in the middle of them, and fighting between each other and so forth. And here we have, ever thought about Guinnesses and the regrettable Parson Rome's advice? So both Shem's father and Father Butt and Stephen the Hero both suggest that Shem should take up a clerkship at Guinness's. And then it says, want to join the police? And that's something that came up in a postcard or something in the 1929, and it's something about Pearson's Weekly, and Shem said that at least is about something. I don't know, joining the police or something like that. Whereas Shem and Sean don't really have real jobs, something in that vein. So then we have, you're always one of the bright ones, since a foot made you an unmentionables, fakes. So how a foot could make a man an unmentionables, kicking somebody in their privates, I don't know. Fakes is another word for faith. Faith, Shun goes through faith, hope, and charity in his own pun ways in this next few lines. You're the diver's own smart gossoon, equal to your cell and wani gold to angly other, so you are, hoax. Now, diver is an exam in biblical literature and history required of every Oxford undergrad up to 1932. Gossoon means a young lad. Sean is equal to himself in the Latin sense and unequal to angly other in the English sense. In a sense, the dynamic is a hoax, but also a hope. Now it continues. You'll be dampened, so you will, one of these infernal days, but you will be, Carity. So here Shem is telling Sean, you'll be damned or wet through baptism, one of these. And invernal is Italian for pertaining to winter. So Carity means charity, and charity is good for the eyes. So Shem had a bad eyesight, but so that brings us to the end. So thank you for staying with me to the end of this video. I know it was exhaustive. You have to be really a huntable and exhaustive conflict to stay with Finnegans Wake. The one unde derivator is the salvation boat, the boat of millions of years. And Shem would say, don't give him the tag, mummer, or the show's a goner. So I won't give you the tag of who the salvation boat is, but maybe see some other talks, and you'll see in those talks who the salvation boat is. So haggis good, haggis strong, haggis never say die, and I'll end with that. Thank you.